We are in a cold civil war. I see a threat to the very reason I came to America.
America was never great! America was never great!
Are we losing our country?
That's a clip from the newest film by Dinesh D'Souza, Trump Card. Dinesh, glad to have you here. You mentioned that in that clip, a cold civil war. My concern is I'm not sure it's a cold civil war based on what we've seen in Portland throughout the summer. You know, the left saying defund police. Can it turn into a real civil war?
It could. We would be in the very early stages of that. When I look at these paramilitaries on the street, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, what's most striking to me is that they're not random street gangs. They are supported by people who put bricks strategically there for them, by Hollywood people who put up bail money. They have friends in the media who will turn off the camera if they're breaking a window. They have friends in the mayor's office in Seattle and Portland and even New York City. So these are paramilitaries attached to the left and to a political party. And you'd have to go back to Italy in the 20s or Germany in the 30s to find similar phenomena.
Dinesh, I'm trying to put this together. What is it that makes these young people decide to pick up a brick that may have been left for them and throw it through a window? Where is the disconnect to society? What's happening?
You know, I saw an article about these two guys in New York who had gone to the best schools and very good law schools, and yet they've been arrested for throwing Molotov cocktails at the cops. And the article was like, how ironic that the most privileged members of our society would behave like this. But I think it's actually not ironic because the most elite colleges are the most radical. In other words, the indoctrination machine is in full swing. So think about it this way. If you really believe American society is rotten to the core, it's been corrupt and racist from the beginning, it's been one long systematic plot against women and minorities and gays, then it does seem logical to say, all right, I've got to do what I can in this kind of quasi-fascist environment to strike against the machine. And so I'm afraid that what we are seeing is the fruit of indoctrination. Academia is the theory and Antifa is the practice.
And the fruit of indoctrination mixed with a volatile cocktail with Trump derangement. I mean, is Trump, the fact that he is who he is, part of the problem, the reason why it's exploding to this magnitude?
Well, I think it's the fact that Trump fights back. In other words, the left is so used to a one-sided aggression. And in fact, they still think that way. Look, their view is that we can knock down your monuments because we know you won't knock down our monuments. We can unleash the deep state against you because even if you're in full power, you won't unleash the deep state against us. We can pack the court. Even if you control all the branches of government, we know you wouldn't do that. So Trump is a guy who basically says, look, I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine, and this drives them insane.
What happens if it is a Joe Biden, President Joe Biden? What happens to the streets? What happens to law and order?
Well, honestly, Eric, I think in the short term, the streets will go quiet and we will all have a false sense of security. But that'll only mean, this is very similar to like when Mussolini came to power in the 20s. The first thing he did is he shut down the street gangs. Why? Because he was moving them into the government. Essentially, he went from street terror to terror unleashed by the state itself. And so I think what we'll see is Antifa will quieten down. We'll all think, wow, this is really great. Things are getting better, but they'll be getting worse, because the tyranny will be moved from street gangs, who basically are outside the system, to gangsterism within the system. Obviously, all the deep state investigations will stop, and the deep state will resume its normal business of corruption at the highest level.
Just about a minute or so, if Trump does prevail in November, what happens to these Antifa, these agitator groups? What do? Did they sit back? Did they have and stop, or does this enrage them more?
They will have an initial orgy of rage, which I think we should be ready for, we should anticipate. If Trump loses, there'll be a concentrated effort to stamp out every stain of Trumpism from American life, to treat it as a sort of unfortunate blip that should never be allowed to happen in the future. But if Trump wins, he has the same ability that Reagan did over 2 terms to really change American society. Remember, the Reagan Revolution didn't really end until 2008 when Obama was elected. We can see the same with Trump.